We are live everywhere. Are you okay?
Hey.
Paul and Ashley.
Is this microphone working?
You're Ashley. Yeah.
Okay.
What makes you think it's not?
I'm not sure. Checking the mic.
Hot mic. Check the mic. Okay, we're on. And Doug from South Dakota is with us already.
Hey, Doug. Happy Sunday, everybody.
Good to see you guys. Let us know where you're joining from, and we'll connect around place. And we're going to talk religion and politics today.
Exactly what you should do on a peaceful Sunday evening. You should get yourself all riled up about religion and politics.
Yeah, why not?
So we make a regular habit of it.
I am a former senior pastor of a church we launched in Fresno, California in 2008. And you are?
I am a former mayor of Fresno and now a nonprofit person working in community development in California Central Valley for a good long while.
So we're going to talk tonight. So we're the perfect combination of talking religion and politics. Both of us grew up in right-wing extreme households, or fairly extreme, and have conservative evangelical households, and are now sort of looking at that ideology and theology we grew up with and are saying, hey, maybe this isn't the best way to go. And we will be making that decision on Tuesday across the country.
It's election eve. Election day eve. I see someone's joining us from Porterville, which is just down the street from us.
Yeah.
In Tulare County, which is super cool. Yeah. So, I think we grew up, it was one of those things where it was just kind of like everywhere. Like I like to say, like cigarette smoke in a casino. You can't really get away from it. It wasn't like, I don't think that my family members were particularly dogmatic. We were just in the culture. We grew up in the Southern Midwest in the Southern Baptist Church, and you just kind of were born knowing things, or born like acting a certain way. So that was our culture.
Yeah. And we were Republican. That was, in our household, that was just a given. That's what we were, because we were Christian. And even though, although I think my parents did vote for Jimmy Carter.
I was just going to say that, I remember this huge departure. I think I was like in first grade, and a friend of mine in the lunch line asked if my parents were voting, who they were voting for. And I was like, well, no, the friend asked me, are your parents Republican or Democrat? I said, I don't know, but they're voting for Jimmy Carter. And my friend Margie Willard, what's her name, says, oh, they're voting for the Democrat. I'm like, well, they're whatever Jimmy Carter is. I felt very defensive of that vote.
Yes. And I remember he was born again.
That's exactly right.
A big deal on the campaign trail.
He taught Sunday school.
Christians had to vote for Jimmy Carter because he was born again. But then when he got to be president, he wasn't Christian enough.
No.
And so just as Barack Obama, in a lot of ways, brought us Donald Trump because Barack Obama wasn't white enough as a president, Jimmy Carter wasn't Christian enough as a president. So he begat Ronald Reagan and the moral majority.
Yeah.
Who Ronald Reagan miraculously became a Christian and an anti-abortionist overnight to start to find a way to win the presidency. But so this is what we do. We talk religion and politics. Again, let us know where you're joining from. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, are we worried about what happens on Tuesday? And then I guess, what do we do if it goes our way, or if it doesn't go the way we want or you want?
Just kind of like, how do we position ourselves?
And we're going to talk a little bit about something that I'm kind of feeling spiritually about, kind of femininity and feminine style of leadership being raised up in the season. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
And this is our first time going live on Instagram.
It is my first Instagram live ever.
And
does that mean we only have one person?
I don't know. Paul got banned from TikTok again this week.
It happens on a regular basis. The Christians sort of mass report to try to get me kicked off my lives. So.
You are like a regular punching bag.
Yeah.
So speaking of, if you have had any interaction with Paul, pastor-paul.com, all the different ways in which Paul is active in the social media space, you know what? It would be amazing if you would take a second, subscribe on YouTube, even maybe become a monthly supporter. We're finding that we really want to make sure that all this stuff stays on air and is free for the most part. There are a good number of you who do support $4.99 a month, $5.99 a month, $10 a month, something like that, and it makes a big difference. So think about it.
Scott from Porterville says he's still here on Instagram.
Okay.
Christ on the left says, "Damn it, Paul, behave."
Yeah.
And Doug on YouTube says, "Shame, shame."
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Exactly.
So that's what we do. So Tuesday midterms. We are truly sort of lifelong Republicans. I voted for Barack Obama twice, but there was kind of other circumstances of that. But, just recently, and certainly with the, we've been rethinking the influence Republican conservatism has on the church. And that kind of started our change of looking at our religion. And then, of course, came this guy named Trump, and we were like, okay, no Christian is going to support this guy. And when we saw how off the cliff our friends were and all the prophets around us, we said, well, we can't have our name affiliated with this anymore. So we're probably rooting for the other side as we have the last couple of elections.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like, I don't know how to say it other than we didn't leave the Republican Party. The Republican Party left us. It's just, it's shocking. But I think like when we first started to notice, like in our church, we planted a church in 2008. That was the same year I was elected mayor. And, that was like right at the beginning of the, the housing crisis and, the Great Recession and all that sort of thing. But I think I remember thinking during the Obama years that like something was kind of up with the right. Like I didn't leave the Republican Party over it, but it was just like, why do I constantly find myself on the other side of like the National Republican Party? And it was just, but it was possible, I think, like in our congregation, like we could always just kind of hold people together. And then that all like definitely changed with Trump.
Well, and I think when you entered politics with the Republican Party, the mandate of the party, according to Mitch McConnell, the highest ranking Republican at the time, was Republicans have one goal and one goal only, and that's to make Barack Obama a one-term president. You, on the other hand, wanted government to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, and would of course work with people who were center left if it meant doing something good for the community I represented.
And so that was forbidden.
Well, that's a good point. I was really shocked by how like what a rebuke I drew because I was willing to work with people. I mean, we're in California, like if you're going to work with your partners and, other parts of the government, like you're going to be working with Democrats. So,
and you got an endorsement from a Democrat, and that got you in trouble.
Oh gosh, I did. Hold on. I've got a mic problem. Mic drop.
Keep talking. What?
Well, okay. Actually, the issue. If you want me to just handhold it, I can.
Handhold that part.
Okay. So the issue was when I got endorsed by Juan Arambula, for those of you keeping score at home, for my mayor's race, people were actually on the right were actually very pleased with that because like Juan crossed over to support me. But it was when I said if he was on the ballot, I would be willing to support him because I think he does a great job. That's when it really alarmed people who were partisans. They were like, oh my God, he's a Democrat, don't you know? And he might vote for abortion. I was like, well, he might vote for a lot of other good things, so why would we be just focused on that one issue? So so it was like we were happy to have the support on the right, but if you said like, oh yeah, and I would return the support, that's when I got into trouble. So anyway, those of you on YouTube are seeing the technical skills of Pastor Paul here, who is our sound engineer and our grip.
I am, yes. Best boy and all of the. Is it still not?
It's still not working.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No.
What? What day F? Here, hold that microphone
Okay.
again. You got it?
All right. So this is a literal drop the mic moment. Why don't I just hold it? I don't mind.
All right. You want to just hold it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty.
We have jerry rigged our home studio that has this has been our little hangout and our little like regular studio since
try to
COVID.
put it in there one more time.
Okay, go ahead. I'll try it. Go ahead and okay.
One more time.
Here we go.
Is it hanging in there?
I think so.
Okay.
That seems all right.
Nobody breathe or cough or
Okay.
laugh or anything.
Let me know if you guys
This is a
can't hear
scintillating
me.
live, isn't it?
Let me know if you can't hear. Okay. Sweet. Anyway.
Doug is asking, did we see Kenneth Copeland praying for Trump last night?
No.
But we've seen that kind of craziness. Our friend Chris Leak is with us on Instagram. Good to see you, Chris. Peggy says, get the duct tape. Yeah, we can do that.
That's probably the right idea.
I did see, I want to show you, you haven't seen this yet. I want to show, and you won't be able to see this on Instagram, but I want to show Dan DeSantis' latest ad. You've got to see it.
You know what? Paul previewed this with me yesterday, and in my mind, I thought I actually don't want to watch. I want to like avert my eyes.
Oh, is that right? Did I show it to you already?
No, but you talked about it.
Oh, okay. Let me make sure I've got this right.
Yeah, it sounds chilling.
It is. All right. This is Dan DeSantis, and you'll see this on YouTube and Facebook. This is his latest ad. You will hear it on Instagram, and it's scary.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a protector.
Random
So God
pictures of
made
Dan
a fighter.
DeSantis.
God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, kiss his family goodbye, travel thousands of miles for no other reason than to serve the people, to save their jobs, their livelihoods, their liberty, their happiness. So God made a fighter. God said, I need someone to be strong, advocate truth in the midst of hysteria, someone who challenges conventional wisdom and isn't afraid to defend what he knows to be right and just. So God made a fighter. God said, I need somebody who will take the arrows, stand firm in the wake of unrelenting attacks, look a mother in the eyes and tell her that her child will be in school. She can keep her job, go to church, eat dinner with friends, and hold the hand of an aging parent taking their breath for the last time. So God made a fighter.
All right.
God said, I need a family man.
That's about all I can take of it, too. I mean, I hear that, and I tweeted this. And so I almost feel embarrassed to say this, but I saw that video and I'm like, oh, this is what 1930s Germany was like, advertisements. Dear leader will save us. He alone can save us from the danger of those people. And I think that's a very scary ad. And I think it does denote a mindset that typifies conservative Christianity, republicanism, and certainly Trumpism today. Very authoritarian based. We need a savior. Those people are coming to get us, and there you have it. So that I think typifies republicanism today, and why I just don't think you can vote at any level for a Republican in this season. And that doesn't mean I think the Democrats have got it all right by any stretch of the imagination. I think our system is badly broken and in need of revamping, but there is an existential threat. And I'll finish with this and let you talk. I had people, this week, like, why don't you, say bad things about Democrats or Muslims? And I'm like, because they're not proclaiming themselves the party of God. They're not telling people you're going to hell if you don't vote for us. They're not doing acts of evil like men like Ron DeSantis and claiming God has endorsed those evil acts. And that is a problem that I feel like I have to stand against.
I have nothing to say. You can keep talking. That's my commentary, is like absolutely speechless.
Doug says, I could see Republicans unironically proposing LGBTQ plus wearing rainbow tags to identify them in order to protect the children. Oof. Carol says, my question regarding candidates are they Democrat and what is their stance on the Dobbs decision? That's the Roe v. Wade overturn of the Supreme Court. So you have nothing at all to say?
I have nothing to say. I just like.
Well, that'll do it for today, guys. Glad you joined us.
But because it's just so ridiculous. And I'm so over the like charismatic leader that, the I alone can say. I mean, it's just, and this kind of gets into your point that you've been making lately about more feminine attributes being needed in leadership ranks, which could come from men or women. But like it just does nothing. Like it does absolutely nothing to do this big dramatic, video and blah, blah. Like, oh, for God's sake, just somebody freaking run the government, head down, do a good job, and
I think it speaks to their base, though. I think it is, sort of that end times focused teaching is like, there's going to be a Messiah raised up to put us in charge.
Yeah.
And Dan is the man. Yeah. Dan's going to do it.
Yeah.
He's going to put those people in their place.
Yeah. That's definitely the case. I overheard a conversation in a local salon this weekend with.
That's where you can really get the
I know
tea,
it was
right?
it was literally like old timey, 1950s, like with the hair dryers on, only we were getting our nails done. But and they, these two ladies were just like we don't have to worry about anything because of Jesus. And we already know what's in the end of the book. And, we've been preparing our whole lives for this moment. And the problem is the people on the other side, they don't really believe in evil. I've seen evil. I know there's evil. They don't realize that there are evil people trying to take over this and and I'm hearing and I'm thinking to myself, you're right. You were taught your whole life to think this way, and oh my gosh, it's just so frustrating.
Yeah. And I, talking about that, sort of spiritually, I've been talking this week about something that I have a sense in the atmosphere and the universe that I have declared as femininity is being raised up in this season. And one of the things that intrigued me to kind of come to that conclusion is it's been odd. There's always been sort of a pull towards hypermasculinity in the evangelical church that I grew up in, boys being boys. And, like it's typified by like girls will be held in one room to talk about dressing modestly and not tempting boys and all these things. And boys will be taken out to shoot bows and arrows and play basketball. And, but what we've seen in recent times and sort of this crazy idea that Trump, shows this super masculinity somehow, maybe because he said he grabs women by the pee, in the past or something, but we see it on Fox News and sort of this hyper masculinity, this focus on, our men are being feminized and we need alpha men. We need real men to step up and in sort of that reformed theology of how they said it on Rise and Fall of Mars Hill is that a woman gets saved from a bad, violent man by a good violent man stepping in to protect her, kind of that idea. And I've just been having a feeling that is a response. It is a spiritual response to something that is starting to happen in the heavens, which is femininity, and the attributes of the feminine are going to start to become more appreciated. I mean, our culture is built on don't run like a girl, don't throw like a girl, don't cry like a girl. We see womanhood as a second class status. And it's part of the reason I think conservatives and Christians so marginalize the LGBTQ plus community, is there's just this underlying feel of why would any man want to be a woman when being woman is second class, or femininity is second class. And I don't know if you want to jump in and say anything on that. I can show kind of where the Bible, I think, shows this a little bit, but I sort of characterize this as leadership, as something I've said of you in the past, of a powerful leadership that has a heart for love and a heart to serve rather than a heart to conquer. And when a powerful leader has a heart to serve, that powerful leader can change things long lasting. A powerful leader that has a heart to conquer can change things as long as that leader can maintain power. And so that's sort of the difference of what I see being raised up in leadership, and even in biological male bodies or biological female bodies. I think we're going to come into a time in these coming years, and certainly in the coming generations, when feminine attributes are going to be appreciated and affirmed and allowed and raised up, because I think it's what we're going to need to save us from this craziness that we've entered into.
I mean, I totally agree. I have seen it up close and personal. I see it every day, like, working in a lot of community development spaces and, appointed and elected officials and stuff like that. Like, I really think it's about people who are willing to make sacrifices for those they're entrusted to lead or to make decisions for. And, it's just a real stark contrast. It's not that men can't see that or be that or like whatever, but yeah, I just think there's a lot of conditioning around male leadership styles that it's just kind of excused for things to be about you. And I don't know, it just doesn't accomplish anything, you know? So,
well, I think men are culturalized to it too. I think men are victims of it as well as benefiting from it. Certainly they benefit from the privilege, but I think there are many men that have to put on a facade of masculinity to try to prove themselves, and it becomes their defense mechanism. It becomes their opportunity for success. And for women who sort of take on that same conquer attitude, then they get called all kinds of bad names, because we see it as a negative in a biological female body and a positive in the male. And I find this really interesting, because if you look at the Bible actually prizes the unlikely and the more feminine characters in the Bible. And even though women were it was absolutely a patriarchal society, and women were despised in many ways and had almost no rights, I still see where the Bible prizes the idea of femininity. And certainly the male leaders who don't necessarily register as those ultra mega masculine guys. Moses, we know, had some sort of speech impediment issue that made him a little bit hesitant to think that he could lead, and Abel the gardener, God chooses Abel the gardener over Cain. And we really see it in the story of, say, Jacob, where Jacob is the fair-skinned, beautiful son of Rachel. And so Isaac loves him over all the other brothers, or over his brother in some ways. But Isaac knows that Esau has to be the inheritor of the family line because Esau is the strong hunter. He's the masculine, hairy guy. And so it takes, his mother, Jacob's mother, to Rebecca, to fake out dad and get Jacob the blessing of the family. But God chose the kitchen working boy that hangs out with his mama rather than the hunter. And then Jacob's son Joseph, who we're told is wearing a coat of many colors, or a multicolored coat, it says in the Bible, the version that we have now. But that passage, that term for multicolored outfit, is only used one other time in the Bible, and it's to talk about a daughter of David. And it says the same word she wore, and what is translated in this time is a long sleeved robe that princesses, daughters of kings, would wear. And so it's kind of interesting that at very least we know Joseph had something about him and about this outfit he wore that made him stand out and made his brothers hate him. And again, he was the one working in the house, not out in the field with the brothers. And that's the one that God chose. And then even finally to David, which I think we always think of David as a manly man, but David is not invited to the house when Samuel's going to anoint one of Jesse's boys as king. David is not at war, and he may have been a boy, but he was old enough to be able to travel a long way to the war, and wasn't a soldier. He was a harpist. He was a poet. He danced before God unclothed in a way that made his wife, the queen, say, "I'm leaving the castle and never coming back." So there was something about David. We know King Saul looked the part of a king, but David was a man after God's own heart. And we're even told that David loved his friend Jonathan as a man loves a woman. So we can't say without question that David may have had some non-binary sexuality in him, but we can say he certainly carried a lot of feminine attributes and characteristics, and God prized him for that. And even Jesus had left carpentry behind, became a teacher. As far as we know, he could read, which would be very rare for a common carpenter to be able to read. And so there again, and we don't hear about Jesus dating a lot. And so again, not saying there's queerness in these people necessarily, but just again, those less than masculine attributes exemplified through people that are prized in the Bible. And so why would we not prize that in society and Christianity today?
And like really kind of just expanding that point, like finding leadership in unusual places, don't be surprised when leadership comes in a different package than may be like sanctioned by the church or, kind of lifted up and elevated in traditional circles, right? Like, I think when I hear you talk about things like that, I just think to myself, is my heart soft enough? Is my heart in a place where no matter the package, if a person is bringing forward something that is loving, is effective, is inclusive of people in my community, like I don't care who it is, can I follow them? And if the answer is no, I can't because I don't like this outer thing about them, or I don't like that outer, then I have to go back and kind of check my heart, So I think that kind of like discernment and that kind of approach to just thinking about like, who do we want in leadership ranks is, I hope that we choose differently. Let's say.
And I think an example of that, like when Barack Obama was in presidency, I said from the pulpit often in our church, like, you don't get to hate the president. That you just don't get to. And many of our people did anyway. But when Trump was elected, I think my heart was, okay, he's the president. I'm going to try to get behind him. I'm going to hope that he assumes the office. And there was a thought like, well, once he gets behind that desk in the Oval Office, it'll raise him up to the position. And then I mean, for me, then I saw his inauguration speech and I was just like, oh my God. And then very quickly it became evident, like, not only was he not going to step up to the position, but he was going to drag the whole country down to his level. And at that point, I do think you have to start to say, okay, I've got to oppose this president and oppose somebody who wants to, when somebody wants to garner power by demonizing others, as we see happening with the trans community today, that's when I think followers of Christ have to say, this is when we're required by the Bible to fight for justice for the poor, the foreigner, the marginalized, and the economically disadvantaged, because that's the never-ending command of the Bible. And so I think every vote should be, if the true command of the Bible is love your neighbor as yourself, and that is verbalized throughout the Bible as justice for the poor, the foreigner, those that are disenfranchised or marginalized or historically set in the back of the line, or the widows, it would say. And the widows were important because once your husband had died as a woman in that era, you had no access to the economic system. And so they had to provide for the widows to survive, or as a case of like the woman caught in adultery, very likely she was a widow that had to turn to prostitution because that was her only way to live and survive. And so caring for the economically disadvantaged, caring about systemic racism and systemic withholding of economic opportunity, I think are the ongoing commands of the Bible, verbalized infinitely more often than banning abortion or banning gay marriage. Yet we still find that the right and conservatives and Christians want to demonize gay people and trans people to garner power. And that's when I think we have to stand up and say, no, you can't vote for those guys in the upcoming election.
So a lot of good comments coming in on Facebook and YouTube. I like Peg's comment. It's time for nurturing. She says, yes, I think that's right. There's just
what do you mean by nurturing? What do you hear in nurturing?
That was a few minutes ago when we were talking about the need for a more feminine approach to leadership. And I think that's what Peg's talking about. There is just this incredible song that a guy, I think his name is Kamo. It's called Put a Woman in Charge.
Oh, you're talking about that song?
Yeah. Who sings that song? On my phone. I'll find it. Anyway, there's this really cool video. You can look it up on YouTube and you can see it. And there's just it. Roseanne Cash is featured in the song too. It's K-Mob, I think.
Okay.
Anyway,
that's called Put a Woman in Charge.
Put a Woman in Charge. And the words are so beautiful and the images are so beautiful of just like, call the daughters, the sisters, the mothers. One of the expressions is the Sisters of Mercy. We need the Sisters of Mercy now. And oh my gosh, it is just this. Somebody shared it with me like a year ago, and I just have been every couple of weeks. I just like sit and watch that video. And I think it says it all.
Your friend Claudia has joined us on Instagram.
Claudia.
And I think in that this is not an anti-man trope. This is I think men can display femininity. It's part of what we're trying to upset in the status quo, is to say this hatred of feminine attributes is not from God. It's not Christ-like. And those feminine attributes can be displayed in biological males or females or binary people. And as Douglas said here, femininity and masculinity are more fluid in the Bible. Eve was made from a piece of Adam, can't have one without the other. And the Bible literally says, God says, let's make man in our image, male and female. He made them in his image. And so the image of God is both masculine and feminine. The Holy Spirit is listed in mostly feminine nouns in the New Testament, is a feminine attribute of God or the Spirit of heaven. And so just this craziness of like masculinity being highly prized in the church over femininity, and even to the point that some churches don't allow women to be pastors or to speak in a church or to ever have authority to speak over men over the age of 13 is just insane.
That's actually like really common. I mean,
Really
like
common.
most American evangelical churches have that policy in place.
I know, it's crazy, and
it's just
it's
weird.
2022
I
for
know,
God's
I
sakes.
know.
And, you know, it's like I think I tweeted once. You know, I didn't realize when MAGA people wanted us to go back to the 50s, it's the 1850s that they want to go back to, not the 1950s.
I remember like when you were pastoring and I was mayor, we would be at like some church conferences and stuff. And, you know, or even like with, you know, other local churches in Fresno where like they literally, you knew the people you're sitting next to or across from believed that it wasn't possible for a female to lead anything. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, so like I can't be involved in church leadership, but I can lead a city of 550,000 people. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's actually probably the most prevalent viewpoint out there.
And because Christianity has had such an impact on our culture, you know, I think it has. So I think even in evangelicalism, the most liberal of evangelical churches still sort of is like, okay, women can preach, but lead?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even in some of our mainline denominations, I think it's still just culturally, we just are a culture that prizes this masculinity. And so we're seeing this rising up of, we need alpha males, we need real men. I think it's the love of guns, it's the love of war, it's the love of death penalty. You know, we love corporal punishment, we love overpowering, we love our saviors being very masculine. And you know, that's what I think that ad is, you know, taking a little. I think DeSantis is like 5'9" or something like that, and so they're just trying to make him look very big and powerful and God endorsed. And I think it's a real danger and actually a real indication of what spiritually is happening in the season.
So, okay, so what is bringing you hope in this season?
That is always an interesting question that we have.
We like kind of go back and forth between, I don't know, Paul believing that we are in this time where you just have to call out stuff and, you know, the truth is the truth. And, you know, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And I'm like, great, but can we find like some silver lining in this? I'm always yanking on that part of the discussion. Where do you find hope?
I mean, truly, my hope is that there's more to this world than what we can see, that life and value for what we do in this life goes with us into the next. I do not believe there is a zero-sum game where at the end of all of this, it's going to be, did you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Yes and no. And the yeses go to heaven and the no's go to hell forever. I think it's going to be more of, you were given the amazing power to love and to seek out purpose and to sacrifice for others. What did you do with it?
Yeah.
And there will be a reckoning in that. And so my hope is, and what I talked about in our Sunday community this morning was Hebrews chapter 11 as being the hall of fame of faith in the Bible, all of these people that did amazing things. And then it says, some of them like overturned kingdoms, and some of them had their backs split open and were killed. You know, some of them closed the mouths of lions, and others were sawed in two. And so it's this, you know, some really saw something amazing happen in this life, and some didn't. But all of them understood they were looking for an outcome that was beyond just what was right in front of them.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I feel like the sort of the things of heaven that like every single time you make a decision, you choose love, you choose to be a conduit for like pure love for somebody, whether it's just like a split second. thing that you think or do, or decision that you make, or it's like, you know, a big grand gesture. Like, just when you're in those moments and you make that choice, I feel like that's the pure gold stuff, and that stays with you. You know,
it's good. I think so. And I mean, I tend to believe, and if you look at the Bible and how the judgments of God work in the Bible, if you look at history and the cycles of history, always empires wind down. And sometimes change only comes with sort of a collapse of things. And when you look at the American political system, I think most of us are saying, wow, the right is really insane and is a clear and present danger to us all. And the left is really broken and doesn't seem to be working either. And so how do you change that? We haven't been able to change it with some of the political revolutions we have. And so I think some of my hope is like we're in the midst of the course of human events where humanity sort of falls forward. We fail forward sometimes. And I think that's the course of things we see happening.
I think that's a good point, because, and by the way, for people who have never joined us for Paul and Ashley Live, we are normally never this serious. So there's something about like Instagram,
it's a somber season,
is making us, or maybe it's the season, but also when we're normally on TikTok, you know, people are just firing the comments right and left, and like people say really ridiculous things. So it's easy to feel a little punch drunk when you're on TikTok. But so this is more of a somber tone tonight. It's kind of, you make a really good point that like when the institutions fail, like I am not, by the way, I am like kind of a pro institution person. I love to reform institutions, but I'm not a like burn everything down kind of person at all. I want to remake, and I want to be efficient and use our resources to make bigger, greater, better things happen. But right now, our political establishments are failing. They're failing us. They're failing, you know, the broader community. So it is actually kind of a fun and interesting time. I shouldn't say fun. It's not fun. It's actually, I think, kind of hell on earth. But it is an opportunity. Like, hey, maybe it's not about the institutions. Maybe it's about just like regular people, you know, and the connections. I think there was a comment on YouTube that was about like, it's about connection with people that opens up the opportunity for love to flow, for health and healing to happen. And like, I think there's just always been that since I've been alive, like that, you know, in the 80s and the 90s, like, it's kind of like you could just assume the institutions were going to handle everything because things functioned okay. And you could just kind of like sit back and, you know, if you're a white middle-class girl, you can just be like, like that's, you know, whatever. I just can stay focused on myself. And I don't think we're in that season anymore. And I think it really is a chance for people to just like see each other again and kind of dial it down on the institutional side of things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody has the option in this season to sit on the fence anymore. You're either, as I say, in Christianity, you're either complicit to how our religious beliefs have been prostituted out, or you're standing verbally and outspokenly, if that's a right term, against it. You know, just like after 9/11, every Christian demanded of our Islamic friends, you have to speak out against what happened on 9/11. I likewise say to Christians, you have to speak out against what's happening in Republican Christianity right now and what happened on January 6th, and be honest about our participation in it. But Thomas Jefferson, you know, was famous for saying a little revolution is good now and then. And I think in some ways, you know, we're having a rumble through our institutions, and there may be some calamity in it that then will give an opportunity perhaps for maybe our Gen Z followers to start to then step up and try to rebuild something better. Because I think the two-party system is broken. the electoral like so Liz Cheney and the Cheney family are not people that I love greatly. Liz Cheney has become kind of a hero of the progressives and the left. But she does seem to be a bit of a truth teller in the season, one of the few out there. And she was asked about Kevin McCarthy the other day, and whether she would, if she were still in office, would she vote for him for Speaker of the House? And her statement I thought was interesting. She said, Kevin McCarthy's very consistent. Anytime he has a chance to choose between his political future and political power or what's right for the American people, he will always choose political power. And I think that is not just true of Kevin McCarthy, but just about everybody. When the party becomes more important than what's right or helping people, that's when the institution clearly is broken. And so I guess my hope and optimism is our dog okay?
Our dog is having a nightmare over there.
My optimism is we do right, we do our best, and the outcome sort of is left to the antiquities to determine or decide what was right and wrong. But what we did out of the best of our hearts for others to serve and to sacrifice for goes with us beyond this life. And Hebrews 11 comes to an end, and we go to the top of Hebrews chapter 12. Those chapter breaks didn't exist in the original writing of the Bible. Those were put in there later. So they flow together, and it says, hey, all of these people did amazing things from faith, and some of them, they didn't see the fulfillment of their promise here on earth. But then we go to the start of chapter 12. It says, therefore, since we have this great cloud of witnesses, let us run on in the race. And so that just always says to me, like Moses, who didn't get to go into the promised land because his generation disqualified itself from seeing the promise fulfilled, is still somewhere in the cosmos saying, it was worth it though. I did my best. I did what was right, and it was worth it. And that we will see. And I always think that story is interesting because then here's Caleb and Joshua, the young guys, and the Bible says because they had a different spirit, they got to go in and see the promise fulfilled. And I sort of feel like we're seeing that generationally now. We have sort of this current generation that is not going to be able to see the fulfillment of the hope of what they had hoped for in their generation. But these younger guys, because they have a different spirit, get to see something cool happen.
I think there's a generation in the middle though. And I think like I personally think that's what the Xers are all about. We're this kind of tiny little generation in between these population booms. And I think we have an obligation and a responsibility to like not just sit back and be like, all right, millennials and Z's, you guys take it, you'll figure it out. No, we got to build, start the building, and create as much as possible, like in alignment with where they're trying to go, and leave an inheritance.
And truly by if we want to parse it down, the story of Moses and Joshua and Caleb. Joshua and Caleb would have been the Gen Xers. Like Moses and his generation would have been the boomers, and Joshua would have been the Gen Xers leading the millennials and Zers into the promised land.
Gotcha.
And so even we see at 85, Caleb's daughter and son-in-law come to him and said, hey, we were promised this land. And Caleb is like, okay, let's go get your land for you. And then I can't remember the name of his son-in-law, but then when we go to the book of Judges, his son-in-law is the first judge of Israel, who then starts to claim more of their promise for them. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the Joshua and Caleb would be the Xers in the story. Yay, Gen X. So that's a lot of stuff we're talking there, and good stuff. I hope you'll go to my website, pastor-paul.com. If you love what we do, all this free content, would you subscribe there and help be a part of growing this and keeping all this free content coming? And I sent out email this week with just some content from my Deconstruction U mentorship. If you're deconstructing your faith that's a hard journey. And I want to encourage you not to do that journey alone. And one of the things I offer is a mentorship called Deconstruction U, with study guides and reading materials and things to help, and then one-on-one meetings with me to start to rethink your faith with me walking alongside. And so I just would love to encourage you to go check it out at my website, pastor-paul.com, and click on that deconstruction, reconstruction tab, and it'll tell you about my mentorship with Deconstruction U, my identity and well-being coaching with Reconstruction U. Let me walk alongside you in this season. It's not a time to be journeying alone. So I hope you'll go check it out.
You got the best comment from one of the folks you're working with this week. You might just express that. It was like really cool.
Yeah. Gosh, why can't I think of her name right now?
Well, I don't know.
Maybe it's not
share a
important.
name, but
yeah, she. You're talking about the one about the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had just jumped into Deconstruction U, was into the first lesson, and she sent me a text and said, "Hey, I haven't picked up my Bible in months." And she said, seeing that you were having Bible verses for us to read was daunting and hard. She said, but it was very healing. And now she's been given the Bible back at a time when she left her faith and her church behind. Now she's saying, oh, I get the Bible back. I get prayer back. But I always say, you get it back without the shame that was attached with it the first time you had it. So Deconstruction U, I think, does that. It gives a space to start to think differently about God, the Bible, hell, sin, Jesus, atonement on the cross, all of those things that trip us up as we're deconstructing, thinking, am I sending my children to hell by deconstructing? That's what we work through in Deconstruction U.
So you have room for like a couple dozen people to go through that with you.
Yeah.
And so pastor-paul.com for more information.
And you should, if you're on my email list, you should have received an email with an opportunity to get a 15% discount right now and a coupon code. If you're not on my email list, go to my website, pastor-paul.com, sign up to be on my email list and receive my newsletter, and I'll send you the information about how you can get 15% off Deconstruction U and how you can have an opportunity to get a free one-on-one with me. So sign up and we'll take care of that for you right away.
All right.
Is that everything?
Listen, those toilets aren't going to clean themselves.
Toilets?
Those toilets. We have to go clean the toilets and vacuum the house.
All right. Well, we've got that to look forward to. So great to see you guys. Douglas, I hope you're on my email list too. If you're not getting email from me, let me know. Check your spam file first. Then if you're a Gmail user, check your promotions file. All of those are filtering out our email, but check. And if you think you're on my email list and you haven't received email from me Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week, then reach out to me through the website and say, hey, I didn't get my email. What's the problem? And we'll try and figure it out. All right. Good night, everybody. Hope you're having a great weekend and getting ready to start a great week.
See you guys next month.
Okay. How do we end? There we go. Okay. We've ended IG, and now we'll see you guys on YouTube and Facebook.